You know, I don't know if y'all can see it, but it ain't worship until Troy breaks the pedal. Hey, I'm not saying nothing, brother, but you might need to miss leg days. I'm just saying. You might need to hold on for a couple weeks in the gym. Man, how can you not want to go to church?
Amen.
What is up with people? Well, let me say that. How about renewal church? That's what I'm talking about. I know I went to a couple funerals. It was like, man, all I do is go to funerals, man. This is like crazy, you know. I guess for some people, that's just church service. Not us. We don't sing to the dead. We sing to the living. Right? And I have to ask you this question because I want you to really think about this. I know we've been like the last 4 weeks we've been on the same text, and you have to get what we're saying. If you don't get what we're saying, you're gonna miss the whole reason why we're here. You ever ask yourself, God, why am I going through this financial struggle? God, why am I going through this job situation? Why am I going through this divorce? Why am I going through this broken relationship? Why am I going through these issues with my kids? Why am I going through all this stuff? Let me ask you a question. What if all of the stuff that you go through in your life is so God can hear you sing?
That's right.
Because let's be honest. Let's not be super religious here. Let's be honest. When life is good, you with me?
Yeah.
We sing different songs.
Yes.
I'm moving on up to the east side. Come on now. I finally got an apartment in the sky. What? George Jefferson. Some of y'all have no idea what that was. But it's amazing when you go through trials and tribulations and you go through pain and heartache. It's amazing how your heart then becomes overwhelmed and burdened and it falls before the Lord. And God says, that's just where I want you. That's just where I want you. So what is worship? And we've been talking about this and it's so funny because I use this word worship interchangeably with song. I use it interchangeably with service. I use it interchangeably. But worship really does encompass everything that we do for the Lord. You know, tomorrow's Monday. He wants you to have church on Monday. Some of y'all, you come to church once a month. Let me just tell you, it's not enough. Have one meal a month and see how you survive.
That's right.
Shoot, you guys can't even get to 3 o'clock. You're like, I'm dying. Right? You're like the kid in the back of the car. I remember I was in a Gremlin. My aunt's Gremlin. Yeah. Voted one of the most ugly cars ever made. And I remember we were leaving riding horses and we were coming back to the house and I was like, I'm dying of thirst. I just want something to drink. I just had water at the stable. I wasn't dying of thirst. Man, I wanted to stop by that Little Champ, get something to drink. Y'all remember Little Champ? Y'all remember that? Come on now, people. That's all I wanted. You can't survive on just a little. You gotta get it. You gotta get it. You know, my wife is so funny, man. You'll see her in her car. And listen, she got a convertible, but that thing is the size. That thing is small. It's only a little 2-seater. And she has her top down. And she plays the same song over and over and over and over again. It's by Elevation Worship. And he says he'll do it again. And she's like in her car. You'll see her. She's in her car at a stop sign. She's praising Jesus and you're going, that woman is possessed. And that's what I want you to stop when you see her and go, dear Lord, please be with Jason. She's married to that crazy woman who's just praising Jesus.
Yeah. Amen.
I'll take her. You go through troubles, you go through hardships, not because God hates you. We're going to look at this. Because God wants to hear you sing. God wants to hear you worship. Let's just get right into this. Genesis 28, here it is. We talked about the very first part, this 4-week session within this series about our values, talked about our obedience and worship. We talked about, so Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, and he said, you must not marry any of these Canaanite women. Instead, you go to Padam Aram and to the house of your grandfather Bethuel, and there you will marry one of your uncle Laban's daughters. You cannot stay here and marry these Canaanite women who don't worship me. You've got to go back home. You have to go back to your family, back to what we know to be true, and marry one of those women. So he gets in his caravan and he starts making his way. He gets kicked out of his house. Crazy, right? And his purpose was to find a bride. Wow. Could you imagine you telling your 35-year-old son in your basement, you got to quit playing video games, go out and get a wife. And if he doesn't, load his behind up on a donkey and send him on his way. See, some of y'all still go, I don't have a basement. You better not have a 35-year-old son in your basement anyway. All right, here we go. Here it is. The next part is this. The ladder in worship. Here it is. Verse 10 says this in chapter 28. Meanwhile, Jacob left Beersheba, and he traveled to Haran. And at sundown, he arrived at a good place to set up camp, and he stopped there for the night. Let me just say this to you real quick. As you get to Genesis 28, let me just say this. There's 3 times God comes to people in dreams. This is the 3rd time. And each time these dreams come to them, it's always at night. So this is what you see. So God already has a habit of coming to people in their dreams. And he says this. He says, and Jacob found a stone to rest his head up and lay against it to sleep. Verse 12 says, he slept, he dreamed of a stairway. In the older King James Version, maybe some of you grew up in the old church, it says ladder. Ladder is not really a good word to use. It's like a stairway. Think about like a pyramid or something, how you have these basically stairs that kind of go up, kind of a thing. He says this, it reached from the earth to heaven, and he saw the angels of God going up and down the stairway. And the top of the stairway stood the Lord, and he said to him, I am the Lord, the God of your grandfather, Abraham, the God of your father, Isaac. Now let me stop for a minute real quick before we continue to read this. Let me set you up. Jacob was a guy that his name means deceiver, heel grabber. When he came out of his mother's womb, he was grabbing and clutching the heel of his brother Esau. And his entire life, at that point, was nothing. He basically deceived his father and he stole his brother's birthright. This is this guy's life. I mean, listen, I don't understand Abraham. I'll be honest with you. Abraham is like this guy who basically is in a land full of crazy people. He's like the only sane guy, right, in the crazy ward. You know, you with me? And so he's there, and God calls him. He says, take up your stuff and just go. Where do you want me to go? He says, start walking. He's like, all right, I can do it. I can't do that. I got to kind of know what time I got to leave. I got to know what to pack for. You with me? Yeah. Some of y'all are planners. Listen, don't sit here and be religious on me. Go, oh, I understand, Abraham. If the Lord spoke to you, you'd pee your pants. Right? So, you know, honestly, I'd be the guy who'd be like, that can't be God talking to me. And so Abraham is going, okay, I'll go. I can't relate to that. I can't even relate to Isaac and all this stuff, but I can relate to Jacob. Jacob's jacked up. Listen, matter of fact, the next time he meets the Lord, he wrestles with God. Y'all know the story. He wrestles with God, and he says, I'm not going to let go of you till you bless me. That's like me. I'm going to grab Jesus and be like, I'm not leaving till you let me in. And God says to him, Jesus says, your name is no longer Jacob, it's what? Israel, because you have wrestled with man and God and prevailed. Do you realize your life is all about a wrestling match? And the question is, are you going to tap out or are you going to keep going?
That's right. Amen.
That's why I love Jacob. I love Jacob because he's this cat that he's got junk, man. And think about this. If God came to you, right, if God actually came to you and began to speak to you, I'm going to tell you what 99.9% of all people would say. If God spoke to me, he's going to condemn me of everything I ever did wrong. Come on now. You know, if God came down and spoke to me, we had a conversation, I think God's going to start when I was 13 years old. 16 years old. 21 years old. 30 years old. God says to Jacob. Messed up, jacked up, deceiver, liar, manipulator. And as he dreamed, he saw a stairway reach up to earth, right? From earth to heaven. And he saw the angels of God going up and down the stairway. Verse 13, at the top of the stairway stood the Lord. And he said, Jacob, you're a bad person. What he said? Jacob, let me go, before I can handle this church thing, let's go back and let's talk about some things in your life and your past that you did. How many of you, listen to me, how many of you, your theology is that? You are scared to death of God because you're scared that He's going to throw all of your junk in your face. Right. Can I say something to you? That is satanic theology. God does not throw things in your face. Doesn't. So you don't have to walk into church and be this person. Well, I got to get my life together if I can be with Jesus. Your life is never going to get together. Right? Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that just beautiful? That He's not waiting for you to figure it out. He's not waiting for you to get your kids together, to get your marriage together, to get your life together, to get your job together, to get your finances together, to get your relationship. He's like, I just want you. When you understand that God just wants you, your theology, your view of God, your understanding of His character changes.
That's right. Amen.
He says this. Verse 13, at the top of the stairway stood the Lord, and He said, the very first thing He says to him, I am the Lord, the God of your grandfather Abraham and the God of your father Isaac. The ground you are lying on belongs to who? You. You just stole the birthright. You just deceived your father. You're always scheming. He goes, it's yours. What if God came down to us and said, renewal, it's yours? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? It's yours. What do you want to do? Keep reading. He says this, the ground you are lying on belongs to you. I am giving it to you and your what? Descendants. Talk about a 401k. Right? He says, your descendants will be as numerous as the dust of the earth. They will spread out in all directions, to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south, and all the families of the earth will be what? Blessed through you and your descendants. How can you say this? I just got kicked out of the basement. Yeah. I'm on a donkey headed to go find a wife. I don't have anything. Man, I don't even have a home. I got to go find an uncle I don't know. I got to go live in his house, work in his fields. How am I going to have all this? Verse 15, what's more? Look what he says. What's more is I am with what? You. Deceiver! Come on, man. Jacob, you have deceived and you have schemed and you have lied and you have manipulated. I'm going to tell you how messed up this theology is, because most of us will say this. I can't. When you get to heaven, listen to me. When you get to heaven, you're going to stand there and go, how did they get here? How in the world did they make it? I know how I made it. Meanwhile, they're on the other side going, how did they get there? Right? You're going to have half of heaven going, how did they get here? The other half be like, how did they get here? And Jesus is going, you still don't get it. And then your first sermon in church in heaven is going to be Jacob. Let me tell you how you got here. It has nothing to do with you. You ever have someone say that to you? Hey, how did we get here? Yeah. I don't know how we got here. It has nothing to do with you. You'll get this in a minute. You'll be in a fight. Listen, fellas, I'm telling you, you can use this line. You'll be in the middle of a fight, and your wife be like, "How did we get here?" You'll be like, "It has nothing to do with you." Not you, baby. I remember one time my brother and his wife came to our house and they were unloading their stuff. I think it was around Christmas time. And so they got there at our house before anybody else got there. So they're unloading and they're stressed. You can just see it. Their kids were young. And my brother's like, he opens up the suitcase and the shampoo went everywhere. And he's like, "I can't believe you didn't pack the shampoo in a plastic bag and now it's all over." His wife's like, "Quit yelling at me." He goes, "I'm not yelling at you. Specifically you. I'm just yelling at the general you." I think they slept in separate bedrooms that night. But I'm just saying, you can't use that argument. It's not good. So now, whenever we see each other, we're like, "Hey, I love you. Not you, but the general you." Oh, gosh. Verse 13 again, it says, "Once more I am with you, and I will protect you wherever you go. And one day I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have finished giving you" what? "Everything I have promised you. I will not leave you." Let me ask you this question. Let's talk about theological terms. What did Jacob do to earn that? Nothing. Nothing. So why do you think you can live your life getting favor with God when God says there's nothing you can do to earn me my love for you? I loved you as deep and as long and as lasting as I possibly could love you. There's nothing you can do in your life to stop me from loving you. Amen. So stop living that way. Stop thinking you have to be perfect. I gotta play a part. Honestly, I think it would be better if we all just carried our sins on our shoulders. Like, "Look, this is what I'm struggling with. Here it is. Throw it down. Boom." All right, so here's the last part of this message. You ready? I don't know if you're ready for it. We're just going to go through it. Verse 16, here's Jacob's response. So my question to you is, if that's the understanding, if you're Jacob and you're in the middle of a desert, in the middle of a dream, and God speaks to you, and he says that this is the place I'm going to give you, and you wake up, what's your response? What are you going to do in worship? What is your natural response for worship? Here it is. Verse 16. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and he said, "Surely the Lord is in this place. I wasn't even aware of it." But he also was afraid. So what's so funny is it's like, God is here. Whoa. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. But he was also afraid, and he said, "What an awesome place this is. Is it none other than the house of God, the very gateway to heaven?" The next morning, Jacob got up early, and he took the stone that he rested his head up against. By the way, I know it sounds weird to us, but what a lot of times would happen is you would journey into eastern parts of the world. You would, if something happened to you or something you wanted to remember that moment, you would take whatever it is that you had, and you would kind of just lay that stone to the side, and it would become an altar. It's not an altar that you sacrifice or like that. It's just something you put aside. You ever done that? Okay, maybe I won't. Okay, let me explain it like this. We're kind of weird in our culture. It's like this. You ever grow up in a house where you have like remember when a house used to be all, now it's like open concept. There was a time when everybody had like the compartments, right? So when we were dating, we went to Memphis, Tennessee, and we went to Graceland. Okay, when you walk through the front doors of Graceland, sorry, hold on a minute. That's where Elvis lived. Elvis used to wear the white suits, the crazy hair, right? Okay. All right, so sorry, I had to hook my people up over there. All right, so when you walk through Grace, and I remember we walked through, and you have these, this little hallway, then you got the stairs that go up, and they're like, oh, that's where he died. Cool, okay. Can we go up there? Like, no. All right. So you're walking through, and then one side you see like this living room, and the other side you saw like this dining room. But the living room is kind of like the room, even at Elva's house, that nobody really ever used. You ever had those people, you go in their house and you can't sit on their furniture? Then you got the other families that are one step up where they covered their furniture in like plastic. Y'all know those people, right? Some of y'all are like, what's wrong with that? Okay, so that's kind of what it is. You have something special and you kind of set it aside. It's kind of the idea and the concept is special to you. I remember as a kid, I didn't own anything really as a kid, but I had like certain clothes. And I only had certain clothes, we called them our church clothes. How many of y'all had church clothes? You only wore those to wear. You did what? You set them aside for Sunday, right? You had your church shoes, church pants, church jacket, church tie, whatever. We used to dress up back in the day. So that's what we did. Now I'm like, yeah, there's no Jesus in that. Let's just, if I can show the church in a robe and sandals, I'm down. All right? So I'm just like, shorts and flip-flops, I'm down with that. I'm just being honest with you. Matter of fact, I put pants on today. I was like, man, I wish I had some shorts on. But anyway, so it's just the way it is. So he said he put that stuff aside. So verse 18 says, the next morning he got up early and he took the stone, he rested his head up against it, and he set it upright as a memorial pillar. And then he poured olive oil over it. In other words, it was a picture of him being broken. That's the picture of God showing his promise and his love to him. And he's going, man, my response is brokenness. We sing a song, when you move us to what? Tears. Some people sit in the back and go, I don't know what's up with these people, man. They're crying, they're raising their hands, they're bowing down. People's eyes are closed. Why? Because worship should break us.
Right.
Not all the time, but I'm just saying, but some of us have been broken in a while. Our hearts are brittle. It says this, he named the place Bethel, which means the house of God, and although it was previously called Luz. Verse 20. And Jacob made this vow. So this is what Jacob's response is. You ready? So he begins to say this to himself. If God will indeed be with me and protect me on this journey, if he will provide for me food and clothing, he's not going to Walmart. He's not going shopping at the mall or Amazon Prime. He says, all I have is this. This. If God's going to provide for me all these things that he says, and if I return safely to my father's home, which, by the way, will be a 20-year difference, then the Lord will certainly be my God. And this memorial pillar I've set up will become a place for worshiping God, and I will present, listen, to God a tenth of everything he gives me. Let me give you 4 reactions to worship. You ready? 4 reactions. First one is this. Write this down. You ready? Realization that God is in this place. You can't worship God unless you understand God is here. Right. I'm not talking about just in church, though this is very important. I'm talking about everywhere you go. Right. He's there. He's in your home. Listen, if you're a husband and a father and you have a home, you are the priest of that home. He has to be in your home. Man, God, I want you to bless me. Well, bring him in. Right. Invite him in. God, be in my house. You say, well, I don't have a husband. I'm a single mom. You are now the priestess of that home. You are in charge. Invite him in. Make God the center of your home. Amen. Realization. This is where we meet and we commune with God. If we're going to set up our place as renewal, it doesn't matter where we are, but wherever we meet, we make God the center of everything that we do. Amen. This is where we open ourselves up to God. Let me tell you something. This should be the safest place in the world.
Right.
Nothing breaks my heart more than people trying to pick and choose who comes to their church. How dare we?
Right.
How dare we, right? Jesus says, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto myself. You know what our job is? Lift him up.
Right. Amen.
Amen.
You're going to get some crazy people that come to your church.
Right.
Hey, you're here. Right? Look at the guy out there speaking. In pants. He's crazy too. Realization, God is here. The second thing is this. You ready? Affirmation. He says, I'm going to make this vow to God. I'm going to affirm something to myself. I don't want you to walk out of here and not have God speak to you.
Amen.
Man, I'm up here worshiping. I'm going, God, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say, God? What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? Now, what is it that you want your people to hear? What is it that you want us to say? God, just tell me what you want me to say. I look crazy, man. Is he doing watermelon during worship? Do you not know the words are right there? Right? Remember watermelon when you don't know the words of a song? Just watermelon. Right? Remember being in church as a kid, you have those hymnals, and like I don't know music. I'm on the first, I'm like first and last. I don't have a clue what all that is, and you got to kind of follow along. Oh, then you skip down, and okay, I don't know. Kid, you got watermelon when I don't have a clue what I'm reading. I don't know. I can't even read. I'm going to public school. Leave me alone. All right. Realization. Number 2, affirmation, making a commitment to God. When's the last time you committed anything to the Lord? I commit Monday to you. I commit Tuesday to you. How about this one? I just commit this afternoon to you. Let's make it easy. God, I commit my husband to the crazy house. Commit something. Right? Do something. Commit somewhere. Yeah, I love how people just come to church. They're like, oh, yeah, music's nice. Yeah, preachers, he's all right. Yeah. I didn't get nothing. You ever heard of that? I don't get anything from church. Maybe you didn't get nothing because there's nothing there for you to get in your heart. You've got to get Jesus in there. And then you understand that when he speaks to you, he just blesses you. And you're like, I didn't do anything because that's the point. And then you realize, oh my gosh, he's blessing me and I don't deserve it. And then you're going, well, you know what? That's the kind of God. That's the God that I'm going to say. By the way, this is the Old Testament. You ever heard someone say that? Oh, I'm more of a New Testament guy. I'm not an Old Testament person. There's grace. Genesis 28, first book of the Bible. It's there. Oh yeah, but God required them to do a bunch of things before he blessed them. What? I don't see it. I see a deceiver, I see a liar, I see a schemer, and I see God say, I'm going to bless you for what? Because I want to. Affirmation, he made a commitment to God. And then he did a demonstration. He had an altar. What's our demonstration? What is it in our lives where we demonstrate our following and our passion for the Lord? What have we set aside? What are you willing to set aside for the Lord? Listen, this is an hour of your entire week. I set that aside. Can I ask you a question? Is God going to redeem that back to you? I wish so much. Listen, I wish God would be like, okay, look, for every time you come to church, I will add an hour back to your life. I wonder what that would do to people. Right. That's not true, by the way. I'm just telling you. It's not true. You think churches will be packed? Here's what I do know about the Lord. Whatever you give him, he gives it back. Right. Amen. Whether it's your time, your treasure, your talent, right? He gives it. You can't outgive him. Amen. And here's what's amazing. He says this. Look at the last verse. He says, "And this memorial pillar I have set up will become a place for worshiping God And I will present to God a what? A tenth. We call that a tithe. Here's what's amazing about this passage to me as I read it. He says, I'm going to give back, God, 10% of everything he gives me. Can I tell you something? There was no law written when this was written. Moses wasn't even on the scene yet. There was no 10 commandments. There was no command to give. He just says, because of God's generosity, I'm going to give it back. Do you know why we don't take up an offering at our church? Because it is not the church's job to take your money.
Right.
We give because we worship.
Right. Amen.
We worship. And I've said this a million times. God doesn't need your money. Doesn't want it, doesn't need it. But because of we are Jacobs, and we are deceivers, and we are liars, and we are manipulators, and we are schemers, God comes down to us. He pours the Spirit into us. He makes promises to us. He makes commitments to us. He gives us blessings. And our natural reaction of God's goodness is to give him back.
Amen.
It's there. So the reason why we don't take up a collection, the reason why we don't take up your offering, we have a box, you give online, but you do it out of your heart before the Lord. That's what we believe. Why do you believe it? Because it's right there. This will become a place of worshiping God, and I will present to God a tenth of everything he gives me. I don't care. You're probably saying, Jason, I can't give 10%. I love God. I want to give back to God. I can only give 1%. We'll give you 1%. Give your 0.5%. Give your 2%. Give your 5%. Whatever it is. Just whatever it is God does for you, you just give back. And then watch God do something in your life with that. And multiply it.
Amen.
Let me give you three application points and we'll close. Number one is this. When we come to the house of God, we come to worship him alone. We come to worship him alone. When you come to this place, it's all about Jesus. It's not about Jason. It's not about, it's Jesus.
Amen.
It's him. It's the cross, right? It's what he did for us. In that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Because the world gave God? No. He said, before you even did anything, I'm going to give. And the principle is still here in Jacob's life. I went to sleep. God revealed himself to me. You know what? If what he says is true, I'm going to commit to this. When we come to his house, we come to worship him alone. When we come to his house, listen, of God, we understand that is like coming to the gates of heaven. Some people right now, you need to be at the gates of heaven, asking God to work in your life. Man, so God, why do I go to have all these stresses? Because if you don't have stresses, I won't see you at all. Right? Look, we can hope that we'll never get sick, but thank God when we do get sick, there's a hospital there. Thank God there's people who are nurses, right, and doctors that understand that. I've heard people say this to me, well, I just can't go to God. I feel like a hypocrite. I go to God and ask him to work in my life, but I haven't needed him up until this point. That's the whole point.
Yes.
You need him. You need him. And you have to understand when you come to him, you're going before the gates, man. When we come into the house of God, we focus on leaving different than how we came in. Let me ask you a question. What was your purpose today? Why are you here? Why are you here? Is it to check a box and go, oh, I did my Jesus thing today. Woo, God's going to bless me. He's going to blow you away. He's going to bless you anyway. He's going to bless you anyway. So why are you here? So I can become a better person. Listen, you're not going to be a better person until you get to Jesus. We all struggle. We all battle. We all go through it. And, a lot of times we're like one step forward, 3 steps back. So why are you here? here because I like Jason. That's a good reason. Amen? I can get hand motions and worship, but I can't get an amen in my sermon. Thank you. Thank you. Amen. I get a hand clap. Look at that. Preach it, brother. Preach it. Preach it. Why are we here? I'm going to tell you why I'm here. I'm here because I have to be here. If I weren't here, I'd be somewhere. Some church. I need coffee. Bananas. Half a donut. A little bit of Jesus. A lot of Jesus. I think Karen has a shirt that says, I cuss a little, but I still love Jesus. I can tell a story real quick about Karen. Karen used to work in our office. And you would hear Karen, like, working, doing stuff, and something wouldn't go exactly the way it would go. And you would hear, I'm sorry, Jesus. I'd rather have someone like that around me. Because she's also the same person, like, if you hurt my family, I will cut you. And Karen's like, I ain't ready to go back to prison. I'll go. I'll go. I'll do it. You got to be real, church. Right? You got to be real. We have to be real. Listen to me. We have to be real. We have to be real. We have to be real. I don't know if you heard this point, but we have to be real. We have to be real. I might have to preach another hour. I don't think some of y'all are getting it. Half of y'all that just said amen, y'all can leave now. The other half, y'all got to stay. Right? I don't want to go to a fake church. I don't want to go to a fake people. I want people to say, I'm messing up and I'm Jacob. I'm Jacob. And Jesus says, I know, but I have promises for you. And then he says, I'm not going to leave you till his promises are fulfilled. You know why some of y'all are still alive today? Because there's promises that need to be fulfilled in your life.
That's right.
I gotta grab somebody and say amen. I mean, I'm just like, I mean, that's good stuff, right? Right? The Lord He doesn't have a checklist of all the good things that you're trying to do in your life. He says, I'm going to be God in your life whether you like it or not. It's like getting a spanking when you're a kid and you hate your parents for doing that horrible. Okay, spanking is like when you were disciplined as a child. Okay, none of this crap like go sit in the corner. No, it's like go pick your switch. Yeah. Right? A switch is a stick you throw away. So I just trying to relate to the next generation. And I remember, and you don't pick the switch, and if it wasn't green enough, the switch that wrapped around your leg, it hit you 5 times on the way around. Talk about child abuse. You would leave a switching from your grandparents, and you had welts all the way up and down your leg. I still have issues about that. And then you say, I hate you. And God says, listen, I love you. Like a parent that wraps his arms around and goes, I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to discipline you for doing wrong, but know this, I'm still going to bless you. I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to be there with you. I'm still going to go through the fires with you. And God says, if I don't discipline you, I don't love you. Church, worship is our response to grace. Worship is our response to grace. Grace is what you don't deserve. It's like you committing murder, standing before a judge, guilty as can be. The prints are all over the knife that you held in your hand. And Jesus comes in and he steps up and says, Judge, kill me instead.
Amen.
What did you deserve? You deserve death. Yes, I know. But I'm going to take your place. That's what Jesus did for us on the cross. That's why the cross is there for us.
Amen.
And maybe some of us have forgotten the cross. Maybe that's why we don't worship. We've forgotten that it was supposed to be us on the cross. That
Yeah.
Jesus took our place on the cross. That
Yeah.
he became the covering for us. That
Right.
he moved us aside and said, kill me instead.
Yes.
Maybe you don't have a reason to worship.
Right.
That's right.
Maybe you can't give. I don't have any money. You think God wants your money? You can't pray and give some time? You can't cover your leaders in your church in prayer? You can't read your Bible, just a verse? You can't open a verse?
Right.
Yeah, but I want to know who's singing behind the mask. Y'all, some of y'all. I didn't know it was LaToya Jackson. Are you kidding me? For the record, that was Karen. LaToya! Take some time. Some of y'all are going to walk. I don't know what is up with this church, but I got to come back next week because you never know what's. Someone's going to get arrested next week. But take the time to spend with the Lord. Listen to me. Take the time to spend with the Lord. Listen, you can turn off some music and turn some worship stuff on. We ain't talking about becoming a theologian overnight or a gospel singer. We're talking about just spend some time with God. Spend some time with the Lord. Worship is our response to His grace. We don't deserve anything, but He is good.
Amen.
Let's, all the time. Let's pray. Maybe you're here today, as your head is bowed and your eyes are closed. Maybe you're here today and you're just struggling. And you have those things in your past that have beaten you down, and the enemy has lied to you, and the enemy has deceived you, and the enemy has told you that you have to get your life together before Jesus is going to bless you. And you just read in the Word of God that blessing comes before change. He's going to bless you. He's going to bless you. He is going to bless you. He has promises in your life that He is speaking over to you. There are accomplishments that He wants to have in your life, and He says to you, I will not let you go until those things that I promised to you are fulfilled. Folks, you can't change your past, but you can change today. Somebody might say to you, how did you get here? And you say, I don't know how I got here, but I know where I'm going. Somebody will say, how can you sing? How can you still serve? How can you still worship? Because everything that He's given to me is undeserved. How can we not be a church that worships? How can we not be a church that calls Him to have His presence in our place? Maybe you're a parent. Maybe you're a grandparent. Maybe you're a kid and you're going, God, I want you in my school. I want you in my job. They might not want you, but I want you. I need you there at my desk with me, working with me. I need you out there on the lawnmowers with me as I work. I need you to follow my kids to school, my grandchildren to school, and be with them and make promises to them and make covenants to them so they know that you're there. The way that you showed me that you're there for me. You don't have to carry your past anymore. You don't have to carry your mistakes. So stop. Just put it down. lay them down, lay them at the altar, and say, God, I worship you, and I worship you because you have made promises to me in spite of everything that I did wrong. You still love me. The way you love Jacob. And you love me just as much. You love me just as much. If you're here today and you're struggling with that, and you can't let go of the past, you've got to let it go. God did not at one time bring up the fact of all of Jacob's sins. He said, I am your God. He's your God. He's crazy about you. He loves you. And he's got an incredible plan for your life. All you have to do is worship. Father, we come before you and we just are humbled. So humbled by everything. There's some of us here that are struggling because we carry all this weight and we're just nervous and we're anxious and we're terrified and we're fearful and we worry, we stress. God, just let us worship you. If there's anybody here today who's never trusted your Son, Jesus Christ, as their Lord and Savior, that they would surrender their hearts to you. Father, we love you, we praise you, we thank you, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Would you stand with me? We're going to have an invitation. If there's something that you have, listen, I know everybody in this room should be at the altar.